Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the Physical Literacy for Community BC Physical Literacy for Communities Initiative webinar. My name is Drew Mitchell. I'm the Director of Physical Literacy for Sport for Life. I will lead off the session today, and my colleague Tom Jones will partner with me in the delivery of this webinar. We're just going to wait another minute or two. We have a few more people to slip in, and then we'll get started. So probably another 2 minutes, we'll get going. Okay. Again, thank you again for participating this morning, taking the time and showing the interest to join us for this informational webinar. Again, my name is Drew Mitchell. I'm the Director of Physical Literacy for Sport for Life. We are the organization delivering on this particular project, which we will lay out in a bit more detail for you. The application process, I believe everybody has seen. There is and Tom will talk more specifically about that as we go along. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of how this GoToMeeting will work for those of you that may or may not have used GoToMeeting in the past. So, there we go. When you're asking questions, what I would like to suggest to you is that you will go to, you can do it two ways. You can go into the question box and you can type in your question. We're going to field all the questions at the end of the PowerPoint presentation in the webinar, but it gets your question into the queue. We also, I would ask that unless there's a specific question you have about a specific thing presented, is to wait until all the materials presented and then ask your question. But if something comes up specifically about something that's been presented, absolutely add your question to the question box. You can also click on raise your hand and we can unmute your microphone. With a group of this size, it's always a challenge to let people speak, but we're gonna try and navigate that one as best we can. If that does not work well, we will default to the questions pane and asking people to type in their questions. Our goal is to hopefully have everybody leave this webinar today feeling more informed as to what they need to do and potentially be able to make a quality submission to the application process due January 31st. So again, presenters today are myself and Tom Jones, our Sport for Life Director of Partnerships and International Relations. I've already gone over how we will ask the questions. So again, I will ask you to hold on to those until the end. Queue them up if you like in the chat, in the question box. I want to recognize the support for this particular project. This project is being supported by the BC Physical Activity Strategy, funding from the Ministry of Health, and managed and led by the BC Alliance for Healthy Living, great partners of ours in this project. We are responsible for the delivery of this project over the 3-year period that it will run. The agenda today, we're going to do a little bit we've already done the introduction and administration. We're going to do a project overview, which Tom will cover, eligibility and the application itself. and then we'll talk a little bit about budgeting and finances, because there has been some inquiries around this, and we'll hopefully clarify that for you. And then we'll field questions at that point. I'll now hand this over to Tom and ask him to take over at the project overview.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Drew, can you hear me okay? Just double checking my sound here.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Drew. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I am Tom, as Drew said. I'm with Sport for Life in terms of the Director of Partnerships and International Relations. But I'm a project manager for this initiative, the Physical Literacy for Communities initiative. Also on the phone is Nick Hasty, who's our coordinator for the initiative. So you may, in the course of dealings between now and the end of January, you may receive something from Nick, but he's on the call as well. So in terms of the overview of the project, I'm going to be reviewing information that's largely in the application form. So hopefully you're following along in your program with me here. I'll summarize those briefly, and we'll try and touch on all the points in the application form and in other places that you've seen. And then we'll get to questions as quickly as we can, because I'm sure that's the most important bit for you. So under funder, the project funder, as Drew said, is the Ministry of Health. It's under the auspices of the Physical Activity Strategy. The partners for this project are the BC Alliance for Healthy Living, the BC government, which is the BC Ministry of Health. They're the folks that are funding and kind of leading the project. Our role as Sport for Life, one of the other key partners, is to deliver. iSpark is also involved in engaging the Aboriginal and Indigenous communities as well. The purpose of the project, as you'll see in the application form, is really around improving physical literacy development in BC. The idea being that it's going to lead to an increase in physical activity and better health and well-being for the citizens of this province. The objectives, there are 4 of them, relate to educating and activating local decision makers, developing physical literacy in multiple settings and sectors, and you'll see that touched on a little later on in the criteria, providing opportunities for BC communities, including underrepresented and marginalized populations, and to positively impact community health and well-being. So those are the objectives. The initiative itself consists of 3 key phases. One is educate, educating communities and people about physical literacy. 2 is train, so training local leaders, training community members. And then mentoring. Mentoring is really relating to facilitating, leading, supporting the work of folks in the communities. And so that, you know, there will be a Physical Literacy for Life mentor assigned and working with each community that's selected in this project. So there certainly is going to be help and support there for that. So Drew, I'll just get you to flip to the next slide, if you would. Let's talk a bit about eligibility. So again, as you'll see in the application form, and probably the pre-screening portion of that, there is reference made there to the type of organizations that can apply. Those are charitable and nonprofit organizations as the lead organization applying. And you'll see under the Appendix A, the pre-screen document, the nature of those eligible and those not eligible. The other item is the size. We're really trying to focus on small to medium communities with a balance there, and we've assigned a population cap there of under 190,000 people. Important piece of this is assessing the readiness of the community to embrace the physical literacy philosophy and approach, and those are really going to be demonstrated by multi-sector partnerships, the commitment of health authorities in that region, whether there's existing physical literacy programs that have occurred, and the nature of staff and or resources that are already in place to be working on physical literacy. Under investment of additional funds, this program is designed to provide 2 years of support to communities, with the expectation, with hope and expectation that additional funds could be leveraged into the project. And really, it's designed to be doing better work, more good work in the area of physical literacy, so that a third year of this type of project could occur, which could continue that great work that's going to be done here. Reporting requirements. As in any project that's a publicly funded project, there are certain accountability requirements. So there will be an expectation of regular reporting, and not to scare you, it certainly won't be onerous, but it will provide information that's important for our funders, and certainly for us to be able to track progress as we go through. The last bit on this slide is about the pre-screening form. It's really Appendix A of the application form. It's a 2-pager, at least on my system it is, and it's the one that lays out eligibility and community readiness. So I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a second. Drew, if you pop to the next slide, that would be great. Okay, application. So this is about the application process, and it refers to both Appendix A, the pre-screen, and Appendix B, both of which should be submitted if you are planning on putting forward an application form. Appendix B is the 5 questions that you'll see there asking about your community. So just to highlight some of the key features of applying, we're going to need a lead organization and an organizational name. Again, it has to be a nonprofit or a charity. Applicable community partners, those are of course multi-sectoral in nature, so multiple sectors. That could be health, education, First Nations, those that are relevant to you and your community and to this project. The next 3 points really are related to community readiness. So examples of current physical literacy work would be things that you're currently engaged in the area of physical literacy, and I'm sure everybody has examples, and they'll all be different of what you're doing. It's very unique to your community, but just showing that not only is the interest and the desire to work in this area, but also some examples of what you've been doing. Potential sources of additional funds. So what kinds of sources or potential is there for additional funds to be leveraged into the project for a third year of this project? And as well, systems and staff in place for sustainability. Are there people working in different departments, in different areas that are either in place now or are prepared to be in place so to sustain this type of project? Under selection, you'll see in your application form under application guidelines, community selection criteria, and there are really 3 key ones. Those are having balanced regional and community representation, so multi-sectoral in nature, and we just wanted to also highlight that in this first year of the project, there will be 8 communities chosen. Each community will have a mentor, and there will be at least 1 community selected for each health authority, and therefore there'll be a mentor assigned to that community, each community. Under community readiness, again, I've touched a bit on that, and community interest, that's really what kinds of ways can each community demonstrate that they've been not only interested, but they have the capacity and the desire to move forward and really build physical literacy as we've laid it out. And then the last bit is a reminder that as of January 31, that is the deadline for submitting those application forms, which would be both Appendix A and Appendix B. Then to summarize, this project is one where communities are eligible for up to 50,000 of resources and project leadership. 17 communities will be chosen and be involved in the project over a 2-year period, 8 in the first year, 9 in the second year. And it's an initiative from the BC government, but it's an initiative that will involve a number of partners. We're excited and delighted to be involved in this, and we're very, very keen in seeing this be a success. I'm going to turn it back now to Drew. We're pretty keen to hear your questions and to provide as much information as we can. And I'll send it back over to Drew then. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Tom. So as per the application process and the information about the program, there are various things that the program can support. This is not a capital project initiative, so the buying of capital goods and so on and so forth are not supported. This project is really about building connectivity and human capacity as we move forward in each of the communities. As Tom has said, there'll be $50,000 applied to each community over a 2-year period. There will be 8 communities selected in this first year that will run for this year and next year, and then 9 communities selected in the next year that'll run next year and the following year. It is important for each community to show that they do have the intent and the potential to bring a 3rd year into this project. We are also looking at some creative ways around using the $50,000 to leverage other types of resources into the community, including foundations located around the province. So there are different ways that we are going to be able to work with each of the communities to customize it to fit your best project perspective for your community. There is, just to reiterate, in the application phase, there's no requirement to submit a budget. So that's why we haven't provided a template or necessarily any questions around that. It's more of an intent around, maybe what you have been spending to date on delivering projects or supporting staff in this particular area. And or how would you be able to secure resources in a go-forward fashion for a potential year 3. What we will do is, for all successful applicants, we will work with each of the communities to develop a budget and manage that budget for each of the phases, the 2 phases of the project. And so I just wanted to be very clear that there is no expectation to submit a budget in this particular project as we go forward. So we'll now move to the questions phase, and we can, you have the choice of putting up your hand, or you can also put a question into the question box. Unless we've managed to answer all the questions, which would be brilliant. we don't have to answer any questions, but I'm sure there are some questions. I also want to state that I was very impressed at the diversity of the communities that had applied to be on the webinar today. A real cross section of communities located around the province. So your interest is very positive, and I'm looking forward to seeing some very strong applications coming from these communities. So there we go. Okay, so we have Carrie. Does the $50,000 have to be matched by partners? No, it does not. The $50,000 does not have to be matched by partners, but what we may do is we may work with you to actually try out and to go out and try and secure additional dollars, leveraging off that $50,000. So it's not required to be matched by partners as part of the project, but we may use the dollars to try and do that. I hope that is clear for you, Carrie. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Oh, they're coming fast and furious now, guys. Hi, Sherry. How you doing? Sherry's in School District 73 in Kamloops. In School District 73, we have done much work in inclusion and developing new physical literacies, and yes, you have. We have a large network of sectors invested. We are looking at access for all in developing physical literacy. Could this be a potential? Would this be a potential next phase for you? Will you select all communities up front in the first intake, or will there be a second intake for year 2? Example, 8 this time. Yeah, thank you for that. Tom, maybe you want to answer that question as to how many communities we'll do in year 1 and how many in year 2?
Yeah, I think you touched a bit on it. It's 8 communities will be chosen in year 1. And as Drew said, over a 2-year period, so this and next year, and 9 in the second year. There's certainly, as I said earlier, in each health authority, there'll be at least one community, so there'll be certainly regional balance. And we're also looking at a kind of a balance between regional, urban, regional, a sense that there's a really nice mix of community representation within those.
And just to reinforce what Tom said earlier as well, we are working through the 5 provincial health authorities. There will be representation in year 1 in the selection of 8 communities. There will be at least 1 community from each of the 5 health authorities. So just to reaffirm that. And there will be a total of 17 over the 2-year period. Okay. Sandy Lavery says, can the application stretch over 2 to 3 small communities? It's not the best case scenario, Sandy. I will not say no. What we're trying to do is we're trying to focus on a community because then dollars get chewed up in travel and lots of other things. But we are open to seeing different types of communities. I would suggest the only way we would entertain that is if the communities were quite small and didn't have the capacity necessarily to do it on their own. If we're talking about medium-sized communities and bringing them together, that is not something that is going to be supported. We want to focus on supporting individual communities and building their capacity. Please confirm the community size. It is, it's less than 190,000, Shona. It is, and I'm sorry if the application says 90. I'm sure hoping that doesn't say it on the website. Nick and Tom, we better check that. Confirm that regional districts are eligible. And the pre-queen asks if the lead is a registered charity or non-for-profit. Yes, and on the screening form, we list out the different groups that are eligible under the criteria of charity and non-for-profit. So as an example, the CRA a number of years ago made municipal governments and school districts, they gave them non-for-profit status in application for these particular types of projects. So they would be considered a non-for-profit under this criteria. And regional districts, again, we're going to do it on a case-by-case basis as we move forward. Kim, will the second-year communities know this year that they have been chosen for next year? It really depends on the number of applications and the quality of those applications, Kim. We have put a ceiling of 8 on for this year. But if we can pre-select some for next year because they're strong candidates, we may just do that. So Tom, any other clarity you want to bring to that one as far as Kim's question goes?
No, I think you've covered it. If we do find a real slate of strong candidates, would certainly. We're not able to support more than 8 in the first year, but would certainly go a long way to influencing or helping us decide for year 2. But again, it'll really just depend on the strength of those applications. So looking forward to seeing those.
Deborah's going all out there and asking the straight up question. I'm from Lillooet, population 5,000. Do we have any chance of being selected? I never say never, Deborah. If it's not ready for this year, will you help us in making sure we're eligible for next application? We'd certainly be happy to assist you in moving in that direction for sure. I can't say yay or nay whether somebody is going to be selected or not. It really will be levels of readiness, but we're open to support people in trying to improve the level of physical activity in their community and overall health for sure. Kim's question, is there only one chance to apply for this? No, there'll be this year and there will be next year. Sounds like you're assigning 8 communities in the first year and 9 the next. Does that mean all hopefully? Yeah, so I kind of answered that question earlier, but again, it is our intention to have a second application period because you're right, readiness does change from year to year. So we will be looking at the, and we'll be very transparent on how that happens in the sense of how many we select for this year. And I will emphasize that if we have lots of strong applications this year, we may pre-select some for next year, but our intent is to leave at least some spots open for readiness to be achieved by next year. Tom, anything you want to add to that?
No, done. Great job, Drew.
Yeah, Steve McGinley. How you doing, Steve? Catholic school districts eligible? Probably not in this particular province, Steve, because they stretch over a number of communities. I mean, unlike Ontario, where a Catholic board would be in a single community, like our public boards are here, Catholic boards probably would not qualify. So really what you'd be looking at is a single school, a single Catholic school, or two that would be in a community. And by the criteria, we've actually said that individual schools are not eligible. So it would be a district if that was the case. Deborah, there are many communities within our regional district. The district of Lillooet is within the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. So would our district be eligible to apply? I mean, a regional district approach, same to Shona's question, may be a way of servicing a number of small communities. I think there's an openness around that. We need to be eyes wide open around all this, that $50,000 gets stretched. We want to be able to make sure that we can be effective in wherever we're working. So it's really important that we do have the ability. So if it's a big geographic stretch, then that puts a lot of stress on the funding. So, but again, I think we're open in the application phase for people to apply as a regional district of small communities, because then there's a reason why you're trying to come together to do that. Assuming, this is from Kim, assuming each program will be customized, meaning there's not one framework expected to be delivered for all communities. Now, there is going to be a menu of services that has a framework written around it for over the 2-year period, but there's lots of choice inside that menu in that framework. But it'll be, so the choice and the customization will come from that menu to each of the communities. That way we can be very effective using a proven formula, and then that allows us to ensure that we're maximizing the dollars that we have assigned for the project. So when I mean customized, each of the communities will determine, they'll also be very different as to which partners they have to the table. So customization will be driven by the community's partners at the table, their leadership, their focus on their community as to how they want to develop physical literacy that's going to best support them. Tom, you want to take the next? Can you see the questions, Tom?
Yeah. The next one is from Sheila. Yeah, the question is, will communities chosen for year one receive funding in the second year, or is it for year one only? Each community has a 2-year window, Sheila, on funding. So in terms of the funding will be spread over both years. So and we haven't totally sorted out what the timing of that will be, but yeah, there will be funding to cover both of those years.
Hannah, another regional district question. Now, obviously, regional districts are popular at the table today. That's great. Again, in my response, we see, because the funding is finite, and it is smaller. I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money, but stretched over a big space, it does get thinner. I think the regional district makes sense to fund if it is doing exactly what you're proposing here, Hannah. You're delivering to small communities. You brought centralized services to be able to service these communities. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think there'd be more openness to look at these on a case-by-case basis as to the utility of supporting them at this type of grant. So yes, I would say, again, just to reinforce to everybody, regional districts are welcome to apply if they're representing smaller communities and smaller communities only versus medium-sized communities. Because, so as an example, the Vancouver Regional, well, I don't believe it exists anymore. But a bunch of larger communities together, it's just gonna eat up $50,000 in no time flat. So we're trying to keep this money focused as much as we can as we go forward. Start period March 1 of this year. Year one will end at our goal is to end December 31st of this year for year one, and start January 1 of next year and run to the following December. Decision will be made on this year one process by about the third week of February, possibly even mid-February at this point. So again, just to reinforce, January 31st is the due date for applications. Tom, you want to get Christine McNeil's question?
Okay. Let you talk about that one, Drew. You have a little more familiarity with it.
Yeah, sure. It was indicated in the partnership with the local health authority was a requirement. We want health at the table, Christine. So it is important that there is an engagement around health. Yes, that would be the Interior Health, Fraser Health, or local health authorities. Local health units would assist on delivery, but we do want to have the larger health authority having a representative at the table. And and Christine, units covered by local societies. Yeah, so we do want to have the health authority represented at the table, at the decision-making table, the leadership table. Obviously, local health units and other types of delivery units would be hopefully engaged in the delivery on the project as we move forward. Steve McGinley's question is, does the population cap refer to the entire city population, or is the amount of students? No, it would be the entire community population, Steve. So it would be Port Moody, 35,000 people approximately. And if a school district applies, they need to be bringing multiple community partners to the table because this is a partner cross-sectoral project. Is this grant available for not-for-profit faith-based organizations? Again, Kim, they can be the lead on the project. They have to have multiple partners at the table to be involved in the project. This is not to service an individual organization's initiative. It's to service a community, or in this case, a regional approach to solving a problem. Margaret, we've already had an active communities grant for 2018. Can we build on this initiative? Again, it just depends on your readiness, Margaret, and your application. It sounds like you've been doing work on that. If you've had an active communities grant, that's great. Look forward to seeing your application as we go forward. Tom, do you want to answer this one from Lee?
The question is it critical the organization applying have a mandate to provide services to all sectors of the community? For example, all age groups, preschoolers, youth, families, seniors. It probably would be helpful, but the organization applying, I think, Lee needs to demonstrate that that they have, connections and partnering with various sectors of the community. I don't think it's critical. It's a showstopper if they don't have that mandate, but it certainly would be, I think, a demonstration of their ability to reach out to all those sectors. That the sectoral representation will be a key part of, I think, of the selection process.
Tom, you want to get Deborah's question next as well?
More funding, is it likely more funding will be available for this project in the future? Oh, we hope so. I think for the Ministry of Health, this is a project that they want to see the potential for it growing into other things. I think it's a really great opportunity for all of us that work in this field to see the engagement of the Ministry of Health. So from what we see so far, Deborah, the engagement at the governmental level is very, very positive. So it's certainly no guarantees, but I think the potential is there. Yes.
So Gloria's question is the mentor for each community or health authority area a representative from Sport for Life or another organization? The lead mentor, Gloria, will be from Sport for Life, and then they will be matched with an associate mentor who could be from the community or from the region, because part of what we want to do is build capacity in the community to have this type of leadership happening. So it is our goal to actually co-lead in most of the communities and build that capacity in people over time. Sandy's question is, Interior Health covers a huge region, as does the Northern Health Authority. Will there be more of an incentive to possibly offer two in these big regions? I would suggest, yes, we're very aware of Interior Health and Northern Health's geographic range and numbers of communities. We have made a commitment in round one, year one and year two, to have at least one community project in each of the health authorities. If good projects, good applications come more from a couple of the health authorities, that's more than likely will be selected from. So there will be a certain amount of geographic representation and regional representation, but our focus is on readiness of the community to do this, and there could be some clustering around that depending on the communities. I think we've hit the end of the questions. We have. Tom, anything else to add, or anybody else have any other questions at this point? I'm hoping that we've answered most of them and given you enough detail.
Yeah. Drew, just to clarify what we mean by health authority. So you'll see under the eligibility that the organization applying could be a health authority, the entity, and we've also talked about the communities within the health authority's region. So there's a bit of a difference there, that when we talk about one community selected per health authority, we mean the region that's encompassed by that health authority region. So Interior Health, Vancouver Coastal Health, a subtle differentiation there. But no,
Yeah.
overall, I think these are really very, very good questions. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it is, again, just reinforcing, it is important that the health authority is engaged in the project. So we stress to you if you haven't already or don't already have them as a partner in other things, is to reach out and make them part of your application, because health is their focus is to hopefully make our population healthier. We know that there's been an excess amount of focus on healthcare. We hope with this project that we can actually bring a focus on health back into the community, and how do we improve the health of our population and keep them away from healthcare. So that is part of our long-term goal with this type of project at the community level. If you have any further questions, who can we email? So Tom, do you want to answer that question?
Sorry, Drew, say again.
Sandy's asked if we have further questions, who do we email after this webinar?
Sandy, I think at the bottom of the application form and in most bits of correspondence, feel free to send them to me. It's tom@sportforlife.ca. And then if I can't answer, I can certainly reach out to others who can. But this has been hopefully helpful for you, but very instructive for us as well. So thank you.
Valerie has actually made an offer, which I think is great. BC Senior Games Society has over 6,000 members across the province. We would be interested in being a partner if you're looking to work with the seniors population. I think that's fantastic, Valerie. Kelly Mann is a good friend of both Tom and I, so as the head of the BC Games Society. So yes, we would be happy and interested. So please do contact us, and we can have a further discussion around that. Shona, due to the time, and it might be difficult to obtain support letters, is this mandatory? I would not suggest it's mandatory, Shona, but I would suggest it could be the determining factor between one community or another. We also have to remember that there's going to be two intakes. So there is, I'm not saying, push it off to year two, but that may, for some communities that can't, that are not able to obtain that level of support in the next 3 weeks, then there is an opportunity for next year as well. Kimberly, can you show the slides again so I can take pictures? Kimberly, how about we do it one better? How about we send you the slide deck? Okay, we'll do that. So Nick, can you make a note of that we'll send the slide deck to all the participating people in the webinar today? That's great. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that. And there's Valerie's email. Thank you, Valerie. Nick, if you can grab that, that's awesome. Looking forward to that. And then Kim, could you give an example or two of what it would look like to have a partnership with a public health authority? Does it have to be a top-down management involvement, or can it be ground level reps like RNs and OTs? I guess where I would separate those two out, Kim, is the idea of having a health promoter at the table, at your leadership table, would be one example. So somebody representing the health authority at your table, so that, because part of the goal of this project is that we want to get the sectors talking to each other a little better. Your example of RNs and OTs would be on the delivery side of the project, and absolutely you want to have those people involved. And because I think public health nurses and other types of medical personnel and health personnel in the community are going to have different roles. The idea of having the health authority at the table, though, helps in some of the planning, some of the coordination on the delivery. I hope I've been able to separate those out for you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Shona. It's usually public health. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So if there's no other questions, I want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate everybody taking the time today and showing the interest. We look forward to your applications, and for those of you that are successful in year one, we look forward to working with you, and we're excited about this next step. Tom, anything you want to share?
No, again, thanks everyone for taking the time to learn a bit more about this. And if there are questions, feel free to email me, and I'll engage Nick and Drew and our team in getting back to you. But best of luck to everybody in applying. I think it's an exciting initiative and great things ahead. Thanks so much.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.